You're watching Football Daily, and here's our list of 10 European greats who were relegated. 10. West Ham United 2003. How could a team containing Michael Carrick, Paolo Di Canio, Jermaine Defoe, Joe Cole, David James and Glenn Johnson get relegated? Well, in 2003, despite finishing 7th the previous year, the Hammers went on a run of 3 wins in 24 games, plummeting to the bottom of the league. Manager Glenn Roeder left the club in April after being diagnosed with a brain tumour, and club hero Trevor Brooking took over but couldn't beat the drop. The star-studded Londoners went down to the second tier, where they stayed for 2 seasons before Alan Pardew returned them to the Prem. And those 5 players went on to huge success, amassing 6 FA Cups, 10 league titles and a Champions League between them. 9. Nwankwo Kanu. The oldest 19-year-old you ever saw, Kanu won the Champions League as a teenager with Ajax in 1995, and by the time he was 20 had added 3 league titles, an Olympic gold medal, and had been named the African Footballer of the Year. An ill-fated spell at Inter Milan followed before Kanu joined Arsenal, where he won another 2 championships, with his finest hour coming against Chelsea. The Nigerian scored a 15-minute hat-trick as the Gunners came from 2 down to win 3-2, but he was edged out of the team by a certain Thierry Henry and ended up at Portsmouth. There he won the FA Cup and helped Pompey beat the drop in 2009, but even Papillo couldn't save them the following year. However, his greatest achievement is still convincing the world that he's only 40. That's absolute wank in Nwankwo. 8. Georgi Kinkladze. Georgia's greatest ever player, Kinkladze, was a tremendously gifted footballer who never quite became the star he promised to be. The midfielder netted an incredible 42 goals in 74 games for Dynamo Sibley and made a £2 million switch to Manchester City in 1995. Kinkladze was Man City's Player of the Year in his first campaign, but the Sky Blues went down to the First Division regardless. Though linked with Barcelona and Inter Milan, Kinkladze stayed with City, once again being named the club's best player and even signing a new 3-year contract. However, in his 3rd season, he sadly suffered injuries and was sidelined by manager Joe Royle. City were relegated again, and this time the Georgian didn't stick around, heading to Ajax before winding down a wasted career with Anathosis and Rubin Kazan. 7. Jimmy-Floyd Hasselbaink. Dutch striker Hasselbaink was born in Suriname and came to international attention with Leeds in the late 90s, scoring 34 goals in 69 games with the Yorkshire side and moving to Atletico Madrid for £10 million in 99. Under coach Claudio Ranieri, he scored twice in a win over rivals Real at the Bernabeu, the first Rojiblancos victory there in nearly a decade, and helped them to a Copa del Rey final as well, where they eventually lost to Espanyol. Hasselbaink finished the campaign with 24 league goals, but still couldn't stop Atleti being relegated, and a clause in his contract allowed him to leave for Chelsea. Once again, Hasselbaink found himself working under Ranieri and won the Premier League Golden Boot, scoring 55 goals in his first 2 years back in England. 6. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. If there's one man in football whose ego could use a relegation, it's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But the Swede's career actually started poorly, as he was promoted to the Malmo first team in 1999, only for the side to drop straight out of the top flight, with the youngster making 6 appearances and scoring once. The following year he bagged 12 in 26, and Arsene Wenger made his famous unsuccessful attempt to sign the forward for Arsenal. But Ajax were watching too, and took Zlatan to Amsterdam for just €8.7 million at the tender age of 20. 11 titles later, and Zlatan is one of the world's most feared strikers, and unusually, the Swedes flourished late in his career, only managing 20 league goals twice before he moved to PSG, where he bagged 156 in 180 games. 5. George Best. Only Georgie Best can simultaneously be called one of the world's best talents and a terrible waste at the same time. The Man United legend was an incredible dribbler in the days of cabbage patch pitches and 2-footed tackles, and won the European Cup as well as 2 titles at Old Trafford. But after manager Matt Busby left the club in 1969, United spiralled downwards, despite the presence of 3 Ballon d'Or winners in Best, Charlton and Dennis Law. In 1973, both Law and Charlton left, whilst the Northern Irishman stayed, despite announcing his retirement and being transfer listed. United finished second bottom and were relegated, and Best departed for South Africa, and 6 years later he would suffer demotion once again, this time in Scotland with Hibernian. 4. Franco Baresi. It's hard to believe now, but one of the greatest defenders of all time, Franco Baresi, was twice relegated to Serie B during his 20 years with AC Milan. After winning the title in 1979, the Rossoneri went down a year later thanks to their involvement in a match-fixing scandal, which saw the great Paolo Rossi banned for 3 years. The second time was more straightforward, as Milan finished in the bottom 3 despite conceding 31 goals in 30 games. That's still more than they allowed in their title-winning campaign of 87-88 and 93-94 combined though. Appointed captain at 22, Kaiser Franz led Milan back to the big time, and by the end of the 80s, they had won 2 European Cups. Between 1991 and 93, Milan went 58 games unbeaten, and Baresi retired in 1997 with 6 domestic and 3 continental titles. He was named Serie A's Player of the Century in 2000. 3. Gabriele Batistuta. Batigol is a Fiorentina legend, netting 207 goals in 332 games during 9 years spent with the club. A natural finisher, Batistuta was deadly with both feet and only left La Viola when he was 31, joining Roma where he won the double. Batistuta joined Fiorentina fresh off a Copa America win with Argentina and scored 13 in his first campaign, then 16 in his second. However, the club finished in the bottom 3 and dropped to Serie B, returning 1 season after thanks to another 16 goals from the Argentinian and the management of that man Claudio Ranieri once again. He subsequently won a second Copa America and 5 times scored more than 20 goals in league play. No wonder his nickname is the Angel Gabriel. 2. Roy Keane. A Premier League champion 7 times over and a Champions League victor, Roy Keane was perhaps one of Manchester United's most underrated players, a relentless winner who ruled the centre of the Old Trafford turf for 13 years. But Keane began life in England with Nottingham Forest under the great Brian Clough. The coach once punched Keane in the face after he gave away a goal, and the Irishman toughened up, becoming a responsible and outstanding midfielder at 21 and attracting interest from United and then big-time Blackburn. In 1993, relegation finally came for Forest, though Keane was voted into the division's Team of the Year and a clause in his contract allowed him to depart. A deal was quickly agreed with Blackburn Rovers, but paperwork issues held the move up. And after Alex Ferguson got wind of the transfer, he rang Keane to offer him a switch to Manchester. It turned out to be one of Fergie's most brilliant ever manoeuvres. 1. Juventus, 2006-2007. No second division has ever seen a greater collection of talent than Serie B did in 2006, when the Calciopoli scandal saw Juventus booted out of the top flight. Milan, Lazio, Fiorentina and Regina were all implicated, but only the Bianconeri suffered relegation, prompting exits from Thuram, Cannavaro, Vieira and Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But many players stayed loyal, with Del Piero, Buffon, Trezeguet, Camoranesi and Ballon d'Or winner Pavel Nedved all remaining in Turin, while former star Didier Deschamps returned to coach the club. Despite a 9-point deduction as well, Juve won the league by 6 points, with a goal difference twice as good as their closest competitor. The next year they came third in Serie A, but it was 5 years before they celebrated another championship. In their defence that season, and everyone since, was Giorgio Chiellini, who had learned his trade as a 22-year-old during that year in Serie B. So there we have it, but what do you guys at home think? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, why don't you click here for loads more great content and down there to subscribe. And as always guys, we'll catch you later.